Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Marguy, and for this research project, I decided to research coral reefs, but specifically the impact of climate change and human activity on this ecosystem. So the things I'm going to go over in this presentation are my thesis for my literary analysis paper, the research that I did and what I found. And then some figures that I wanted to share, which are some pictures from online, figures from a source that I used for my research, and a visual that I drew myself. So first up is my thesis. So basically, my thesis for this project is over the years, this significant ecosystem in all of Earth's oceans has faced extreme and deadly threats due to a rise in climate change and human activity, and as a result, have become severely damaged. As the health of coral reefs are endangered, conservation efforts, policy reforms, and sustainable practices can improve coral reef ecosystems. Next up, I'm just going to go right into my research. To get this project started, I had to create some questions to go by. So since I was interested in coral reefs, I had to research and understand what a coral reef is. So that led to my first question of what is a coral reef? So basically, a coral reef is an underwater structure composed of the skeletons of colonial marine invertebrates, which is basically coral. And in this ecosystem, the coral is actually a living organism. It is alive. And also a coral reef is an ecosystem that provides a habitat for thousands of different marine species. More specifically, providing to many types of fish, sea urchins, sea turtles, clams, crabs, and many other marine animals that I'm not mentioning. Some important information that I wanted to point out is that over the years, there has been a rise in coral reef destruction from a multitude of actions, more specifically like tourism, like cruise ships and scuba diving, fishing boats, and runoff from land are the ones that are mainly like seen. And also to mention, humans have also been one of the main stressors on coral reef ecosystems and habitats as of lately. So the big problems that I'm going to focus on are the climate change and global warming issues, which is ocean water temperatures are rising, and that just results in coral bleaching. We have destruction from tourism, so people diving irresponsibly or anchoring boats into coral reefs. We also have runoff from materials on land, so like any fertilizers or pesticides that are deemed harmful or any other material like that. Overfishing the population around the coral reef, so fishermen going out on boats and just overfishing and not keeping track of like how many organisms they catch, so that just damages the coral reef on site. And then also industrial, coastal, and urban development as there's been a rise in tourism. So that means there's a lot more companies moving out towards the coast to gain money from this influx of amount of tourism that is occurring in those areas. To mention like from sources that I directly used for this research project, according to the Watersheds and Coral Reefs Conservation Science Policy and Implementation by Richmond and many other authors that are also credited in here, runoff and sedimentation are among the greatest threats to the coral reefs surrounding high islands and adjacent to continental land masses. So basically, not just runoff is an issue, there's also sedimentation that is included in that umbrella of runoff problems. And we also have the State of Coral Reef Ecosystems of the United States and Pacific Freely Associated States, 2008, by Waddell J.E. and other authors. They mentioned that as the global population continues to increase and demographic shifts toward coastal areas persist, even greater pressures will be placed near shore resources to satisfy human desires for food, culture, tourism, recreation, and profit. Next up, I'll go through my figures. So these are this is an image that I wanted to highlight because This is actually what a coral reef is supposed to look like full of life with lots of organisms like involved in the ecosystem, full of color, just overall looking like completely alive. While we in reality actually see coral reefs that are like this. So basically this image just depicts a coral reef that has been like bleached all the way through. So this is basically just dead coral. And as you can see, there are some fish swimming in the background here. They're probably just scavenging for like the last that this ecosystem can provide for them. So here's a figure from a source that I used in the research project from National Coral Reef Monitoring Program for South Florida in 2019. So basically, these graphs are showing residents' awareness of threats to coral reef ecosystems between 2014 and 2019. These figures show how aware Southern Florida residents were to the threats that actually destroy coral reef ecosystems. And you can see there's a difference between the percentages for both years. Like some, it starts off as a low percentage and then it goes higher up, or it starts up as a higher percentage and then decreases. So you'll see that they're kind of similar between the 2 years, but there are a little bit of a difference between what people knew between those 2 years. Next up is my systems thinking figure. It's basically a feedback loop kind of cycle kind of thing. This is basically the factors on how coral reefs are destroyed. So first up, we got greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. So this causes like global warming and climate change, um, which then warms the ocean water. And then we also have runoff into the ocean and sedimentation, like I said earlier too, which then directly affects the water and the coral reefs as well. And then we have overfishing, so fishermen in their boats just depleting the fish population and just taking too many out. So that also directly affects the fishing population and the coral reef. There's also anchoring. Big ships and cruising lines have really big anchors to like stay put in the water, and they indirectly also like have hit coral reefs, which has caused like broken and destroyed coral reef areas. So that's also a really big one. And then we also have diving destruction, so people just diving irresponsibly and like breaking coral, like touching it when they're not supposed to, and it's just a lack of respect when diving. So that's also a really big issue. But we also have some other factors in this figure too. We have oxygen flows into the atmosphere from coral reefs. Some coral do produce oxygen, and that oxygen then flows up into to the surface of the water and then just goes into our atmosphere. And then we also have the fish who eat the algae that helps the coral thrive and be healthy. And basically, all the negative factors that I presented in this figure that are human related all contribute to the loss and decline of coral, fish habitat, and fish population, and usually lead to coral becoming destroyed or just overall coral just dying and becoming bleached. So we have some inflows. So we have water movement, small organisms, which are food usually, and nutrients. Our outflows are oxygen produced by a coral reef, and waste materials or the runoff that's put into the water, and then stocks, the algae, and we have calcium carbonate, which is building up the structure of reefs, and then other nutrients as well. So possible solutions that could be included for solving this problem of coral bleaching and overall destruction of coral reefs are coral nurseries, which is regrowing and restoring coral on like lines in the water and then replacing them back into a system where there's kind of some coral left. There's also for tourists out there, diving responsibly when near coral reefs, and avoiding like touching or anchoring like your boats near them. And then avoiding harmful materials that would run off into the ocean. So like the same fertilizers, pesticides, any of those materials that will cause harm. And then spreading awareness to protect the coral reefs. And thank you. That's it. Here are my sources.